More disturbing details are starting to emerge in the tragic death of 25-year-old Shanquella Robinson, and all evidence points to this being a plan for them to do what they did. Ma'am, it just seemed like it would plot because they couldn't have did that over here, ma'am. It couldn't have been over here. They couldn't do that over here. You know, where all her friends are. You know, it wasn't it when it went down like that, ma'am. They don't realize, what they didn't done, ma'am? They just robbed. They just put a hole in my heart, ma'am. That was my only child. It's just heartbroken, man. Meanwhile, Shanquella's family has slammed the FBI for the way they're handling this case, and they're worried the authorities are not doing enough to catch the perpetrators. Thankfully, fans on social media are being very loud about getting justice for Shanquella. And even Shanquella's mom said if it wasn't for Black Twitter, her daughter's case would have gone cold. So what really happened to Shanquella Robinson? And what is this new evidence that suggests this was all premeditated? This case is extremely disturbing on so many levels, because it's been over a month since this young woman died in Mexico, with footage of the vicious attack going viral. But despite false claims on the internet, no arrests have been made to this day. However, thanks to Black social media voices, Shanquella Robinson's story is getting a lot of press coverage at the moment, and pressure is being placed on officials in both Mexico and the U.S. to answer questions about how Shanquella lost her life. But before we go into the details of this tragedy, let's talk about Shanquella's life and all of her accomplishments. They have informed you in terms of their role in this case. Well, they're not telling a lot. They don't want anything to get out. They just keeping everything confident. Shanquella Robinson was an entrepreneur hairstyle, stylist, and social media personality. Born in 1997 in Charlotte, North Carolina, Shanquella ran several successful businesses, including a women's boutique and children's hair braiding business in her hometown of Charlotte. Shanquella also had a strong social media presence and worked as a model doing photo shoots at famous destinations in Miami, Los Angeles, Jamaica, and other places. And the reason why Shanquella's death is getting this much attention is in large part because of Black Twitter. Fans are putting pressure on the authorities to catch the perpetrators, and they're saying they won't let Shanquella become another hashtag. So what happened to Shanquella, and why haven't the police arrested anyone yet? On October 29, 2022, Shanquella was found dead at a resort in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, where she arrived the day before with 6 acquaintances, at around 2:13 p.m. On October 29, a doctor from the American Medical Center arrived at the Cabo resort after someone called to report that a resident at the resort was feeling unwell. Around the same time, Shanquella's mother, Salamandra, who was in North Carolina, received a phone call from one of Shanquella's travel companions telling her that her daughter was sick and that a doctor was on the way to check on her. Well, I received a call on Saturday saying that my daughter was sick and that she had alcohol poison, but her doctor had never arrived. I don't know where they got the alcohol poison from. So at that time, they said the doctor was on the way to examine her and she wasn't responding, as they told me that she was resting a little bit, but she wasn't all the way responding as normal. According to the police report, the doctor arrived within an hour, and she discovered, quote, a female in stable condition, but dehydrated, disoriented, verbally unresponsive, unable to communicate, and appearing to be intoxicated. The doctor tried to administer an IV drip. However, Shanquella's condition suddenly worsened and she suffered seizure at around 4:13 p.m. A few minutes later, an ambulance was called as Shanquella started having trouble breathing and her pulse dropped. The paramedics who arrived at the scene tried to resuscitate Shanquella, administering 14 rounds of CPR. Sadly, they were unable to restore her vital signs, and at 5:57 p.m., Shanquella Robinson passed away. However, this is where we get to the suspicious part of this whole story. See, the details of Shanquella's death that we just mentioned are all written in the initial report from Cabo Police. But the first huge red flag is that, according to this report, Shanquella's acquaintances told the doctor that Shanquella had drank a lot of alcohol. And when the doctor told them it was best for Shanquella to be admitted to the hospital, they insisted she is treated in the apartment room. But here's an even more disturbing detail. The Cabo police report states that the doctor who arrived an hour after being requested discovered Shanquella alive. However, the autopsy report later issued found that Shanquella suffered injuries to her spine and neck, and that she died within 15 minutes of being injured. On top of all that, the Charlotte Observer has since discovered other suspicious details about the police report and the death certificate. For example, in the box for information about whether the death was accidental or violent, the form simply said yes. Also, the police report doesn't mention a cause of death and only says the reason 911 was called was due to a deceased person cardiopulmonary arrest. Neither the police report nor the death certificate mentions Shanquella being drunk or having alcohol poisoning. So, as you can see, almost nothing about this story adds up. And if it wasn't for the pressure on the authorities from social media, we probably would have never found out how Shanquella lost her life. And what's also extremely disturbing is that Shanquella's family said her injuries were consistent with the video footage from an Instagram Live that surfaced shortly after Shanquella passed away. The video shows someone beating a woman in a hotel room, and the family has recognized the woman being attacked as Shanquella. The video was reportedly filmed by Shanquella's so-called friend of 5 years. What's also chilling is that no one who filmed the video bothered to stop the other person. And the man filming for Instagram Live just said, "At least fight back," like he was trying to make it more entertaining for his video. The attacker can also be heard telling Shanquella to get up and fight, while Shanquella is seen sitting motionless on the floor after receiving numerous blows to her neck and head. But that's not all, and there's another horrifying detail that points to Shanquella's death being planned. Another video clip recently resurfaced on social media showing Shanquella's alleged male best friend filming Shanquella while she was asleep in a hammock and saying first, everybody to think that Shanquella died just 24 hours after this video was posted definitely sets all kinds of alarms off. And people on social media are saying it's clear as day that Shanquella was set up by her so-called friends. Speaking of social media, it was mainly thanks to Black Twitter that this tragic story is making headlines. And Shanquella's mom, Salamandra, recently told NBC News that if it wasn't for the people on the internet, the authorities would have let the case go cold. Meanwhile, Shanquella's father, Bernard, spoke to TMZ and confirmed the family believes Shanquella's death was a setup and that Shanquella was most likely attacked while sleeping.